Welcome to this knowledge clip about training a sensory panel. It all starts with attribute generation. When you want to perform descriptive analysis, you want to use an analytical panel to profile food products based on their sensory properties. These sensory properties are the attributes. A list of these has to be generated to create the vocabulary for a certain product set, such as with quantitative descriptive profiling. There are two ways of training, consensus training and ballot training, and I will briefly discuss both methods. First, consensus training. The first step is to provide a range of product to the panelists and let them describe the differences that they perceive individually. Then, the panel leader will ask every panelist to name their attributes and make a long list of everything that is mentioned. Because this list is often way too long to use, and overlapping terms may be used by different panelists, it is necessary to reduce the number of attributes. This is done in group discussions with the panel, where also the attributes and definitions can be refined using reference materials. In the end, all panelists must be satisfied and agree on a final list of attributes, their corresponding definitions, and reference standards. Ballot training starts similar as consensus training. All panelists are provided with a range of products and they have to define the differences individually. But instead of making a long list from these individual attributes, lists of words or lexicons are given to the panelist. These lists or lexicons consist of attribute names, definitions, and sometimes even reference standards. With the help of these lexicons or vocabularies, the panel should come to agreement on which words, definitions, and reference standards should be used for the specific product set. This is refined further in subsequent sessions in which the panel can add or remove certain attributes from the list based on their experiences. In the end, also with ballot training, the goal is to reach agreement on a final list with the best terms and definitions. Now I want to zoom in a little on these lexicons. You might be familiar with specific flavor or aroma wheels. They're quite known for wines or beer and represent a number of attributes that are organized in a certain way. For example, they can be structured according to sensory modality, so taste, smell, or mouthfeel. But they can also be organized according to similarities in the meaning of the attributes. For example, in the category fruity taste, there could be berry and citrus, and under sweet, there could be honey and caramel. Lastly, there is a way to structure the attributes according to production faults. For example, positive attributes versus negative attributes in a specific product. In the example here, you can see that multiple ways of structuring can be combined. A lot of different lexicons exist in literature and practice, and the advice is to use them as inspiration and not treat them as absolute truth, because they're often developed for a very specific product set. Then I will say something about the actual attributes. There are some criteria for selecting the right attributes and choose the appropriate wording. First of all, the attributes have to be discriminating between the samples. Otherwise, the information from your descriptive analysis or sensory profile won't be very relevant. Secondly, the attributes need to be non-redundant, so exclusive. When panelists judge how thick a product is, they do not need to judge again how thin it is. Of course, the attributes need to be relevant to the product or problem that is investigated. Crispy would not be a very relevant attribute for evaluating milk, but it is for crisps. If an attribute is very relevant for the research but is not listed by the panel leader can also suggest those attributes to add to the lexicon. Furthermore, the attributes have to be clear and described in such a way that there can be no misunderstanding. And finally, hedonic attributes are not desired since you want an analytical profile, and hedonic judgments can be very different between panelists. Lastly, something about the use of reference materials in the training phase of sensory panels. The purpose of using these materials can be to illustrate attribute meaning or intensity to the panelist. This is very important to also increase consensus or agreement among the panelists regarding the chosen attributes in the end. Everyone knows what the attributes mean and what to look for in the products that they have to evaluate. When this understanding is very good, this of course also increases the long-term repeatability of the panel. So when there is enough time spent on training the panel with relevant reference materials, this will increase the usability of the panel as a measuring instrument to do sensory evaluation. There are different types of reference materials that can be used. First of all, real products. Lemon peel can be used as a reference for citrus aroma, for example. But also artificial products, so products that are altered or engineered for this purpose. For example, when panelists have to rate the citrus aroma in beer, lemon peel can be added to the beer to enhance the sour perception, and the panelists know what aroma to look for in the test samples. Also, chemicals can be used as reference material. You can make a solution with different concentrations of citric acid to make a reference for citrus aroma. In the end, the panel and the panel leader have to reach consensus on which reference materials are most relevant and suitable to use in training. So, there are different aspects involved in training a panel, especially in the starting phase of descriptive profiling. You now know different ways for generating attributes, criteria for selecting the right attributes, and how lexicons and reference materials can be used.